Hey up, it's Steve from the Old Yorkshire Geek, and back again tonight with another little news bite, just 3 stories for you, so let's get into it, shall we? Right, off we go. Right, let's get my window up. Where do I put? Why do I have it so low down on my list? Why don't I move my stuff up? Because I'm an idiot, that's why. Right, so 3 stories. I think 2 Star Trek, 1 Star Wars. Right, first one, Worf teams with B'Elanna, Spock and Law for Star Trek Defiant series. This is a comic, it's not a TV thing or a movie. IDW Publishing has announced that it is set to expand its Star Trek continuity with Star Trek Defiant, a dark and edgy, in quotes, dark and edgy series from writer Chris Cantwell, Star Wars Obi-Wan, and artist Angel, or is it Angel? I don't know. Unzueta, Star Wars Poe Dameron, which will see Lieutenant Commander Worf assembling his own crew, including B'Elanna Torres, I presume, Spock, and Law. But on that picture, it shows Ensign Road, doesn't it? Have they got this wrong? I don't know. For a brand new adventure described as the Dirty Dozen meets Star Trek. Here we go, and there's the cover. Is this number 1? I might actually have a look for this because it might be fun. There's Law smiling. There's Spock. I presume that's Ambassador Spock. He looks very young there, doesn't he? I don't understand what's going on here. And there's Ensign Rowe, and there's obviously Worf, and there's the USS Defiant. Has it had an upgrade? It looks slightly different to me. Or it might not be, just might be me that's imagining it. Right, in Defiant, someone is killing the gods. I presume they mean the wormhole aliens, the prophets. Anyway. But while Benjamin Sisko and the USS Theseus have been facing the threats in the higher cosmos, very real casualties are growing on lower ground. So I don't follow the Star Trek comics. I don't know. So is this something that we've seen before? I've no idea. I don't know what they're talking about. The true enemy is a man, not a god, and Worf of House Martok has put together his own crew aboard the USS Defiant in the hopes of defeating the dangerous Messiah behind a genocidal cult. Pulling from all eras of Star Trek canon to create something wholly unique and unexpected, Star Trek Defiant unites some of the strongest personalities in the franchise, including Spock, B'Elanna, Law, and more, on a mission with very little guarantee of success. And they said B'Elanna again, but she's still not on the front cover, is she? That's Ensign Rowe. Roe Laren. Right, ever since I made my dad take me to my first Star Trek convention when I was 10, I have been waiting for this moment, says Cantwell, when Heather Antos, Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly reached out to me about writing the first book to spin out of their flagship Star Trek title. I wanted the quality to match my massive wells of enthusiasm. I knew this book needed to be undeniably Star Trek first and foremost, but also something new and complex that would have readers leaning forward as they engaged with the more unexpected journey to the stars. Whereas the new Star Trek book carries forward the grand tradition of Starfleet's saga of discovery and exploration, Defiant immediately sets out to break the rules of the Federation and go on a fugitive hunt from Starfleet with a cast of Trek's best iconoclastic heroes and ne'er-do-wells. Each of them straddling worlds in their identities and calibrations, excuse me, in their moral compasses as they embark on a high-stakes galactic manhunt. The prime directive be damned, he continues. To be part of this amazing new Star Trek universe is a big challenge, and I love big challenges, adds Unzueta. It will be very exciting to show how far our crew can go to save the universe, how many rules they can break just to make things right, and how badass these guys can be when compared to the more clean-cut crew of the Theseus from the ongoing series. So I presume it's an ongoing, graphic novel series. You can't call it comics these days, can you? Also, I'm working with a great writer, friend and partner from my Iron Man days, and with my favourite editor who is pushing me to the stars once again. I am so excited and ready to make this book a new experience for the Trek audience. Just when you thought Star Trek comics couldn't get any bigger, we're continuing to boldly explore new frontiers, states senior editor Heather Antos. Between the flagship title and Defiant, it's safe to say that we have comics' biggest Trek fans, Lansing, Kelly, Cantwell, Rosanas, and Unzueta themselves, crafting what is going to be Star Trek's biggest and boldest interconnected comics story ever. Oh, you can call it comics. And this is only just the beginning. And there's another one, another number one. Oh, this is cover B. With Waff, as my mum would have called him. Sorry, my mam. It's Waff. So there we go. Very interesting. I say I've never heard the USS Theseus and Benjamin. I thought Benjamin Sisko had gone to join the Prophets. Obviously, he came back, didn't he? I don't keep up with the comics. Because the comics sometimes do weird and wacky things, don't they? They have like Doctor Who crossovers and stuff like that, and I don't understand it. But I might keep an eye out for this and have a look for it. And there's actually a comic shop in town, and I might call in tomorrow or whenever and see if they've got any old Star Trek back issues, IDW Star Trek back issues, and get a few copies if they've got some. But we'll see. So there we go. So a new comic coming out from IDW, Star Trek Defiant, and it's a dark and edgy. So there we go. Didn't mention Ro Laren once, and she's on the cover. But never mind. But they mentioned B'Elanna. So it's obviously set after Voyager gets back from the Delta Quadrant, isn't it? Right, Star Trek still. Daniel Davis reveals details about his role as Moriarty in Star Trek Picard Season 3. By the way, this is from Daily Star Trek News. All the links are in the description below. And don't forget, up there... Up there. Can you see up there? Don't forget to like and subscribe. I would appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe and share the videos and all that. And then follow me on my social medias. It's up there, and the links for all that's in the description as well. If you want to, if you like what I do, like it. If you don't like it, as Gary from Nerdrotic would say, thank you for watching. Anyway, right, so there's Moriarty, Daniel Davis as Moriarty, as we saw in the Picard Season 3 preview trailer. Right. In Star Trek The Next Generation, Daniel Davis played the most memorable villain, Professor Moriarty. However, in this version, he was a self-aware hologram and very dangerous. Beginning in the Season 2 episode Elementary Dear Data, while Commanders Data and LaForge were playing Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson respectively, a verbal slip on Geordi's part asked the computer to create a villain that could defeat Data, not Holmes, and so a self-aware super genius villain was born. Super genius, not Wile E. Coyote. I love that cartoon. Wile E. Coyote, super genius. Right, he was defeated, of course, until he resurfaced in Season 6's episode Ship in a Bottle, where he ultimately ended up in a holographic containment cube, making him believe that he'd escaped the Enterprise and was a free hollow man. Where are you going? Many fans were hoping for one of the subsequent movies to be a Wrath of Moriarty, where he would face off once again with the crew of the USS Enterprise, but that never happened, until, sort of, now. In the trailer for Star Trek Picard Season 3, we saw Moriarty once again threatening someone. We have to believe it's our beloved crew. We also learn that this time, on set, was for one day, and he'll appear in just one episode. It'll be a blink and you'll miss it, innit? Speaking of his role, Davis shared one tidbit. The one thing I think I can tell you is I think the fans will enjoy what happens more if they understand that it's a bit of a callback to an earlier season, way before Moriarty even appeared, actually. The first meeting between Riker and Data. You should remind yourself of that. Well, we're on the holodeck and Data were trying to whistle Pop Goes the Weasel, wasn't he? And he couldn't get it quite right. Is that what they're talking about? What does his appearance in Picard Season 3 have to do with Riker entering the holodeck while Data tries to whistle, oh, there you go, Pop Goes the Weasel, on encounter at Farpoint? We'll sadly still have to wait for a few more months for the answer, and February. 4 months, unbelievable. Pardon me. But it will be but it will be worth the wait. And for more detail and all that. Well, there we go. That's your lot. So that's interesting. I wonder what that's got to do with Riker and Data's first meeting. I'm intrigued. Could it be something to do with Data? Remember season 1, at the end of season 1, they killed Data. There was a fragment of him left in like this holographic, not heaven, but it was like a I suppose a holographic heaven. He were like trapped there, wasn't he? So it could have something to do with that. Could there still be part of him floating around in the holodecks? I don't know. But we'll see. We will see. So there we go. So that's interesting, I suppose. You may also know Daniel Davis. He was in The Hunt for Red October. He played the captain of the American aircraft carrier. I can't remember which one it was. What it was called. He was the captain, wasn't he, of that ship. But he had an American accent in that because he's an American actor who can do a decent British accent. Right, Star Wars. Star Wars Rebels is defining the next 2 live-action shows. The next 2 live-action Star Wars shows are heavily influenced by the events of Star Wars Rebels, Disney's first project after the purchase of Lucasfilm. Star Wars Rebels introduced the Ghost Crew, a rebel cell operating around the planet Lothal in the Outer Rim. Star Wars Rebels told many important stories during its 4-season run, including but not limited to Ahsoka's time as part of the rebellion and Maul and Obi-Wan Kenobi's final showdown. Considering Star Wars Rebels handled such significant Star Wars narratives, it should be no surprise that Rebels is now defining some of Star Wars' live-action TV shows, most notably The Mandalorian and Ahsoka. Star Wars lore is a cornerstone of Star Wars Rebels storytelling. It handles legends of the Jedi, the Sith, the Mandalorians, and the founding of the Rebellion, and it studies the nature of the Force like few other Star Wars properties. Though its core focus is the adventures of the Ghost Crew and their connection as a family, their positioning in the galaxy at such a pivotal moment in the timeline, starting from 5 BBY, which is incidentally is when Andor takes place, up to and including the downfall of the Empire, makes Star Wars Rebels the perfect vehicle from which multiple other Star Wars stories can emerge. Ahsoka and The Mandalorian Season 3 will be the most impacted by Star Wars Rebels because it functions as the perfect jumping-off point for an era of Star Wars that had, up until recently, been underexplored, the time after the Empire. How Star Wars Rebels is defining The Mandalorian Season 3. Right, Star Wars Rebels' impact on The Mandalorian was already felt in Season 2 when it introduced live-action Bo-Katan Kryze, the amazing Katie Sackhoff. Her quest for the Darksaber and her mission to reclaim Mandalore. This narrative thread began in Star Wars The Clone Wars and continued well into Star Wars Rebels as Sabine Wren, one of the prominent members of the Ghost Crew, won the Darksaber in combat and proceeded to gift it to Bo-Katan so that she may rule Mandalore. Din Djarin now stands in Bo-Katan's way after he won the Darksaber from Moff Gideon at the end of The Mandalorian Season 2. The Mandalorian Season 3 will continue to explore the Mandalorian conflict and more specifically, who has the right to rule Mandalore. As was explored in Star Wars Rebels, the Darksaber, if won in combat, gives the wielder the right to rule. Bo-Katan is undoubtedly vexed that Din has taken control of the mythical blade, even though he offered it back to her. I mean, they could argue that he didn't win it from another Mandalorian, he just won it from a bloke, a human that had stolen it. So, a non-Mandalorian. It could be argued that, so, it's moot. But anyway, that's what I think. And the trailer for The Mandalorian Season 3 suggests that she'll be challenging his right to rule. Did you read that? Probably. The conflict on Mandalore was a pivotal storyline in Star Wars Rebels. Some Mandalorians had switched sides to the Empire, while others were forced to serve, and yet others, led by Bo-Katan and eventually Sabine Wren and her Mandalorian family, fought to wrestle back control of Mandalore and its people from the Empire. Right, how Star Wars Rebels is defining Ahsoka. And there's Oh, I forgot her name. I can never remember her name. That's Ahsoka anyway. Always slips my mind, that name. Anyway, Star Wars Rebels' influence on Ahsoka goes even further than its influence on The Mandalorian Season 3. Ahsoka played an important role in Star Wars Rebels between Seasons 1 and 2, operating as the anonymous rebel agent Fulcrum until she started working more closely with the Ghost crew at the end of Star Wars Rebels Season 1. Ahsoka's inclusion in the show allowed the Ghost crew's Kanan Jarrus and his Padawan Ezra Bridger to discover more about the Force, its presence on Lothal, and the ancient conflict between the Jedi and the Sith. Near the end of Star Wars Rebels Season 4, Ezra was responsible for saving Ahsoka's life through a complicated set of time-travelling circumstances. She vowed to find Ezra when she returned, and the Ahsoka show is holding her to that promise. The series will focus on Ahsoka and Sabine's quest for Ezra and Grand Admiral Thrawn after the pivotal events of the Star Wars Rebels finale, in which the Ghost crew and the Rebellion managed to vanquish the Empire on Lothal once and for all. As such, Ahsoka will function as a Star Wars Rebels sequel. This has been confirmed by the live-action casting announcements for both Sabine Wren and Ezra Bridger, as well as a first-look image that was shared at D23, which showed the live-action version of the mural Sabine had painted of her Ghost crew family. I wish I could remember the actress's name that plays Ahsoka. She's super famous. I'm hopeless. Right, why Star Wars Rebels is so important now. Right, the most obvious reason for Star Wars Rebels' current importance to Star Wars storytelling lies with its creator, Dave Filoni. Filoni was one of the Star Wars Rebels' creator and has worked as a writer and director on The Mandalorian, and is now the creator and showrunner of the Ahsoka series. It's no surprise then that he wants to continue to explore certain characters and storylines he created and expand their influence on the Star Wars timeline. Narratively speaking, however, Star Wars Rebels Epilogue functions as the perfect jumping-off point for stories set after the defeat of the Empire and the era of the New Republic. The epilogue, though brief, explores the newfound hope that spread across the galaxy after the Empire's downfall. The time right after the Empire's destruction is quite unexplored within Star Wars, and Star Wars Rebels' open-ended epilogue provided the perfect excuse for shows like Ahsoka and The Mandalorian to explore that era further. Both Ahsoka and The Mandalorian Season 3 pull from Star Wars Rebels storytelling because it functions as the perfect tipping point between the dark times during the reign of the Empire and what came next during the days of Star Wars' New Republic. Though Star Wars Rebels has often been maligned for being too childish, a strange criticism for a franchise that has always been primarily aimed at children. I disagree. I'd never agreed with that. Even though George Lucas has said it himself, I think he's lying. Its stories are undeniably vital to Star Wars lore. Star Wars Rebels deserves all the attention it gets, and Ahsoka and The Mandalorian may not be the last shows to be influenced by its story. There we go. Oh, what is her name? What is her name? I don't know. So that's your lot anyway. That's your lot. We'll leave it there. I will put it in the comments if I remember her name. I'll look it up. I'll look it up. Right. So that's your lot. As I said, a quicken. So, thanks for watching. Wherever you are in the universe, look after each other. I'm eating things. And until next time, I'll say this.